Since the inception of personal computers and home consoles, video games have evolved and have surpassed our imagination. Graphics have greatly improved, and gameplay have become more and more complex. It's like a race, and everyone's trying to outrun each other. But sometimes, going back to your roots is not that bad, because some things just don't get old, and the same can be said for this game. Octopath Traveler is a game co-developed by Square Enix and Acquire. The game was initially announced under the working title Project Octopath Traveler back in January 13, 2017 as a Nintendo Switch exclusive RPG. 2 playable demos were released, and the feedback gathered from players who have tried the demos were used to improve the game. The development team was spearheaded by Masashi Takahashi and Tomoya Asano, who also produced Bravely Default and Bravely Second. In an interview, Takahashi stated that his love for 16-bit RPGs have greatly influenced Octopath Traveler. He also mentioned that the game is a spiritual sequel to Final Fantasy VI, or 3 in the US. In this title, you have 8 heroes who band together to accomplish their goals. These characters have individual stories, and their main objectives differ from one another. There may be a few references here and there, but that's all there is to it. The characters in your party hardly talk to each other, except for the occasional travel banter, which is a special event that happens from time to time, usually in taverns. Aside from finishing the main stories, you get to know more about the world and its lore through side quests and NPC dialogue. There are tons of quests in the game, and I recommend to do all of them. Let me introduce the main characters of the game, and give a quick summary of their stories, starting with Ophelia, the cleric. She is both kind and loving. Due to a tragic event, she leaves her home to embark on a pilgrimage on her adopted sister's behalf. Across the lands are churches whose fire begin to weaken, and the cleric is tasked to rekindle them using the first flame. Next, we have Cyrus the Scholar. Cyrus is a professor at the Royal Academy of Atlas Dam. He's very passionate when it comes to learning. His thirst for knowledge will lead him to travel the world. We have Therion, a highly skilled thief who wanders from place to place. He's very arrogant and overconfident in his abilities. Early in the story, Therion learns about a highly guarded manor which was rumored to house all sorts of treasures. The thief then infiltrates the facility. Little to his knowledge, the estate is filled with more surprises than he'd ever hoped for. Next is Alberic, the warrior. He used to be a renowned knight until his kingdom fell. People gave him the title Unbending Blade due to his expertise wielding a sword. He settled in a small town, Cobblestone, until shadows of his past pushed Alberic to venture the world for the truth. The alluring dancer, Primrose. She belonged to a once noble family until she witnessed the murder of her father at a young age. Primrose concealed her identity and became a performer in the town of Sunshade. She aims to catch the culprits behind the grueling act that scarred her forever. Now we have Alfin, the apothecary, a caring young man who helps people through the art of medicine, together with the help of his best friend, Zeph. One day, Zeph's sister was bitten by a venomous snake, and the only way to cure her is to get the venom from the dangerous creature. The apothecary was successful in obtaining the venom and was able to cure Zeph's sister. He then realized his true calling in life. He roams the world in hopes to cure the pain of others. Here's Tressa, the merchant of the group. She's the type of person who's great when it comes to dealing with people. Tressa belongs to a family of merchants residing in the poor town of Rippletide. Not knowing what she wants to do in life, she comes across a book that's filled with tales of adventure and exploration. This gives her the courage to set forth and travel the lands. Lastly, we have the Huntress, named Hanit. Despite her being a hunter, she despises the idea of killing for sport. She has a calm demeanor and cool personality. The Huntress resides in a town within the woodlands, named Swarky. Hanit then learns that her mentor went missing. This incident led her to a journey in search of her master. Octopath Traveler is a role-playing game, and a homage to classic video game series like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. In the beginning of the game, you get to choose which of the 8 main characters you want to start with. The 8 heroes have different job classes, and they have skills that you can use inside or outside of battle. You are free to take whichever character you want in your party, but you can only use 4 active characters at a time. The remaining 4 are left in the tavern, and don't get experience. Certain lineups work better than others, so it's always good to try them all, to get the feel of each character. Aside from the default job each character has, every character has the ability to learn a secondary job. There are 12 in total, 4 of which are secret/special classes. Having 2 jobs will increase the effectiveness of your party, which makes battles more interesting. You can unlock a secondary job class by going to a shrine, which you can access through exploration. Each character has an exclusive skill called Path Action. These are unique abilities that you can use on NPCs outside of battle. Here are the Path Actions for each hero and their corresponding effect. Ophelia has Guide. This lets you add a townsperson as a temporary member in your party. Cyrus has Scrutinize. It is often used to gather information from other characters. Therion can use Steal. Therion can snatch items from other characters, but has a chance of failing. Alberic has Challenge. You get to fight an NPC one-on-one. Primrose has Allure. Works similarly with Ophelia's Guide, but has a chance to fail. Alphen can use Inquire. It works like Scrutinize, and is used to gather info. This skill is safe to use. Tressa has Purchase. This lets you purchase an item from an NPC for a specific amount. And Hanit has Provoke. It functions like Albert's Challenge. You can use it to duel with another NPC. You might have noticed that some abilities have a chance to fail. If you fail 5 consecutive times, your reputation with that area diminishes, and path actions will be less effective. However, you can easily restore your reputation at the town's tavern. As you finish your selected character's first chapter, you are then given the option to roam around freely. The map will now display the other towns where you can meet the other 7 characters. You can fetch the other characters in any order that you want. As you progress, the map gets bigger and exposes more areas that you've already explored. The minimap also stands as a guide, and will display icons of nearby locations or quests. The world map in the main menu gives you the ability to fast travel to a town that you've already visited. You also unlock dungeons and other instances, but you can fast travel to them. Being able to directly go to dungeons would have been cool, but it's not a huge deal. As for combat, it's turn-based. You and your enemy take turns hitting each other. Enemy encounters occur randomly when exploring areas outside of towns. Like other RPGs, your characters have tons of abilities that can give you the edge in battle. Enemies have weaknesses that you can exploit to break their guard and give you turn advantage. This is very useful when it comes to challenging enemies. What makes the battles fun is the BP system. BP, or battle points, are the small yellow dots on top of the character's health bar. The BP functions as a damage modifier and accumulates by 1 every turn. It also makes debuffs and buffs last much longer. Once your character gets 3 BP, you get to use their special moves, granted you've unlocked them. This feature reminds me of Bravely Default/Second's Brave Point system. It functions almost the same, but the main difference is Brave Points lets you use your next turn/turns in advance to make your attacks a whole lot stronger. In Octopath, BPs accumulate and doesn't affect your position in combat. Fighting bosses is the highlight to any good RPG. Obviously, they are strong and have high hit points. What makes them fun to fight is that you get to test your tactics and newfound abilities on them. All bosses fight differently and have different weaknesses. Always make sure to prepare before engaging in any boss fight. Aside from the main chapters, you'll also have tons of optional quests to pick up as you progress through the game. These quests are especially helpful when it comes to stocking up items or equipments. Most quests will have you use the unique abilities of the 8 characters to solve them. From helping a girl hatch her egg, or beating up people senseless, you have tons to do even if you're done with the 8 characters' main storylines. What I love in RPGs are hunting quests, and Octopath Traveler definitely has them. You get to fight strong monsters that test your party's strength and tactics. It's a pity that the game doesn't have too many of these. I just wish they could have lessened the fetch quests and added more monster hunting quests. Let's talk about the difficulty of the game. People who have played their fair share of RPGs will find this game to be a decent challenge, but I also consider this game a good entry point for people new to the genre. If you have good party composition, you can plow through enemies pretty easily. You can finish the game and do absolutely everything in under 80 hours. The developers could have added a harder difficulty setting for experienced players. Overall, it's still a wonderful experience. As for performance, the game runs wonderfully in both portable mode and dock mode on the Nintendo Switch. Everything went smoothly and I didn't encounter any problems during my time with the game. In terms of visuals, the game looks great. They did a good job blending 2D sprites with 3D background. Like the creators of the game, I'm also a huge fan of RPGs from the Super Nintendo era and 16-bit graphics. This game brings me back not only in gameplay, but with looks as well. The way characters and enemies are positioned in battle are heavily influenced by Final Fantasy games. Mika Iizuka is the lead artist of Octopath Traveler and was in charge of the overall art direction. The main character designs were made by Naoki Ikushima, who also worked on the Bravely games. The music in this game is just fantastic. Yasunori Nishiki, the main composer of the game, drew inspiration from the RPGs he played growing up. Mr. Nishiki said that he wanted to make a soundtrack that would bring back the feelings from our childhood frozen deep inside us. Feelings from those days when our hearts beat with excitement at the boundless worlds of adventure that stretched out before our eyes. All I can say is he definitely succeeded in his goal. The music in each area is unique and adds to the immersion. It's a mixture of classic and modern rolled into one amazing package. The tracks you hear in the background are some of my personal favorites. And one thing I kinda wish they included, but didn't, are bit-tuned versions of the songs. That could have been really awesome, but I guess that's just me. It's not just the soundtrack I find good, the sound effects are also well done. I don't know why, but the clicking sound when you go through dialogue is so satisfying to hear. The thud when you hit an enemy really tickles my earbuds. It's not the best I've heard, but the game has really good sound design, and using good headphones or speakers is a must. As much as I had fun with the game, there are a few things I think they could have improved upon to make the experience more enjoyable. Yes, the gameplay is solid, but I really can't say the same for the story. They're not the worst I've seen, but some storylines tend to get on the boring and generic side. After I've beaten all 8 stories, it feels like it's missing something. I would prefer one grand main story that connects the 8 heroes and have their 4 chapter storylines as side quests / character arcs. The game has tons of areas for you to check out, but most of them feel the same. Instead of opting for quality, they instead chose quantity. Exploring towns, dungeons, and even the roads start to get tiresome after a few hours. You do your usual quests and hear the usual things. I think they could have improved on this by decreasing the number of towns and dungeons, but making them bigger with more things to accomplish. And speaking of areas, it's such a treat discovering secret locations in the game, and I wish they had more of that. One feature that I'd like the game to have but didn't is being able to use auto attack. Most RPGs nowadays, and some of the classic ones, have this feature. Being able to automatically attack for some of the main encounters would have been helpful. Octopath has dozens upon dozens of quests, but most of these are more or less the same. One type of quest that I don't find enjoyable are search quests. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. A quest giver would have you jump from town to town to find an NPC, but not know who that person is or where that person is exactly. The quest giver often gives clues, and sometimes names, but you have bad memory like me, you'll burn time talking to every NPC in that town just to get through these kinds of quests. These quests are tedious, and it's a cheap way to lengthen the game. You could argue that this kind of thing happens in classic RPGs, but even then, it's not an enjoyable aspect of any game. I'd rather slash through monsters instead of randomly talking to NPCs like a headless chicken. Like I said earlier, you only have 4 active characters that can fight in battle and explore. The other 4 are stuck in the town's tavern, which I find weird. Every time you want to switch characters, you need to go to the tavern and talk to the bartender. My question is, why not just have a party option on the main menu where you can switch them at any time you want? Not a huge deal, but things could have been a lot more convenient. That's enough whining. Let's get to the things I love about the game. I really love some of the stories from the side quests. My favorite has to be Kaya, the Mother of Dragons questline. You help a small child named Kaya who believes that the egg she carries is of a dragon, and it's her duty to protect it until it hatches. She loses the egg several times, and you help her retrieve it. The story has more to it, and it's much better if you can experience the quest yourself. It's simple, cute, and kind of reminds me of the animated movie Tenshi no Tamago, which is called Angel's Egg outside of Japan. The unnamed girl in the movie also has an egg and believes that it will hatch into a beautiful creature. Go check the movie out. Another thing that I find most amusing is the use of path actions. The way you steal in Octopath kind of reminds me of the Elder Scrolls series. I don't condone theft, but being able to get a strong weapon without resorting to grinding or fighting feels awesome. Before we go even further, the next part will include some spoilers. You can skip to the end of the video by clicking on the annotation on the screen. You have been warned. My favorite part in the game is the fight with the secret boss, Galdera, and the quests that lead to it. The event that unlocks your fight with the boss can only be accessed by beating all of the main character's stories and finishing a series of quests. Before you fight Galdera, you need to fight the final bosses from all 8 stories in their darker and stronger form, gauntlet style with no save points. If you mess up, you have to fight all the bosses again. All 8 characters in your party needs to be in a high enough level because the fight will have you use 2 parties. Make sure to have the best skills from all jobs and get the best equipment in the game. Failing to do so will result in immediate defeat. The fight with Galdera reminds me of Kefka from Final Fantasy VI when he goes through different phases in battle. It also reminds me of how you unlock the fight with a super boss, Penance, in Final Fantasy X, where you have to fight the Dark Aeons for you to encounter the boss. I really like Galdera's design and the lore behind it. This moment is the most challenging in Octopath Traveler, and is the most memorable for me. Octopath Traveler is a real fun experience. It's a love letter to people who enjoy role-playing games. There are things that the developers could have tweaked to make it much better, but these things could still be added through a patch or to its sequel. Overall, I think that Octopath Traveler is a wonderful inclusion to the Nintendo Switch library. The game is a mix between Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Elder Scrolls, and other classics. It borrowed certain elements from these games and made something unique in the process. If you are a fan of the genre, you owe yourself to check this game out. that's the end of the video. I had tons of fun making this review, and I hope you enjoyed watching. I'll be making more videos regularly, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you very much for sticking around. This is Glenn from Ballz, and remember, go play with yourself.